Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 8, which is discussion of a possible action, consideration of amendments for changes to the Virgin Valley Water District Charter, Charter 100, statutes of Nevada 1993, including but not limited to the potential change to require that all members of Virgin Valley Water District Governing Board be elected and no members of the board be appointed. Possible action may include, but not limited to, approval of specific amendments or changes to the Virgin Valley Water District Charter and authorization of the Virgin Valley Water District staff, agents, and representatives to solicit, lobby, and encourage the Nevada legislature to amend or change the Virgin Valley Water District Charter to reflect any amendments or changes to such charter approved by Virgin Valley Water District's governing board. This has been a struggle, to say the least. We worked on this a lot, and there have been a couple new issues come up, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the board.
Mr. President, I'd suggest maybe we open up to the public and then I'll reserve my comments till the public's had a chance to talk. If we are opening it up to the public.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are we gonna open this up to the public?
Yes, we will.
If so, then I'd like to reserve my comments till after the public.
All right. Would you like to, would the board like to open this up initially to the public, or?
Doesn't matter to me. I
We
mean,
haven't- We haven't had a lot of public input. Well, Ken, go ahead if you.
my only comment is when this first came up, my only reservation is that the number on the board didn't change and that it didn't go to an large vote. That Bunkerville received 2 representatives and Mesquite 3. That was when Ted came to me and talked to me about it. And I think we've discussed, and I think we've got a draft here that I think reflects that. So, depending on, I mean, we had a workshop that public was attended, and I think that was pretty much the consensus of what was there as well. So that's all I have to say at this point.
Sandra?
I had a hard time hearing everything that Kenyon said.
That's a first.
But, I've always been in favor of people being elected for positions, and I think that's a good thing. There have been some issues that have come up, some information that we haven't been given, that personally I'd like to see us get that information before this decision is made. But I very much believe in everyone voting for people who are elected to be elected on any board.
Okay, thank you. Ted, comments?
I'm confused, to say the least. I guess some things have changed in the last minute. Mr. Harding, could you go ahead and take this draft as shown?
I haven't reviewed the draft. I apologize. I just got it. But the Legislative Council Bureau generally prefers bullet points rather than draft language. But this is always helpful internally to kind of come up with your bullet points. And that changed. It didn't used to be that way. They used to like it this way. So I can take whatever document really the board produces and provide it to LCB, and they'll build the bill, draft the bill based on it. As I mentioned, I did talk to our legislative delegation, and they said they would reserve a bill draft, so that's been taken care of.
Okay, I guess the one concern that's come up, and we've had some discussions on this issue, and that is proportionate representation, and whether the way the draft is currently written, whether it would pass a legal challenge, on a constitutional challenge. We have been given a big stack of cases here where there's kind of a mixed bag, but ones that seem to resemble what we've currently planned here have been challenged and have had them overturned because they were not, what is it, one vote for, what do they call it?
One person, one vote.
One person, one vote challenges that are, they started those challenges clear back in the sixties, and they've become really prevalent. And talking to Mr. Hardy, he also tells us that is a big issue with the state legislature. So that's an issue that I think Sandra was referring to. And one of the things I think we wanted to get and we didn't have is, and I don't think we still have it, one document we were looking for, trying to get this afternoon, was an actual document from when the water district was formed and how they came to the makeup of the board and the representation of the board in terms of numbers, to see if it was tied to something other than just the population at the time. Because going back and looking at the population at the time, I have here somewhere, the population at the time in Mesquite and Bunkerville were dramatically different than they are now. And at that point in time, would be a lot closer to being acceptable as the law is written, but it may not be at this point in time. So, yeah. Bo's got it right here. Yeah. And I'm not advocating anything, so I don't want anybody to panic. This is just discussion. But the census in 1990, Mesquite was 1,960 people was the census, and Bunkerville was 750. 750 was the population at that time. In 2010, it's now 1,526 in Mesquite, 1,300 in Bunkerville. So Bunkerville represents 8% of the population, and two positions would represent 40% representation. So that may turn out to be a problem when we start having a constitutional check of whether that is in fact true representation of the ratepayers. I guess we can still, that doesn't prohibit us, I guess, from going ahead and doing it any way we want to do it, but it may cause a challenge for us. And I think that what we would have liked to have seen is we would have liked to have seen that actual document, but we never could find the document, at least at this short notice. We tried to find it today, but we couldn't come up with it today, so I'll leave it up to the board what they want to do.
Well, I go back to, with that statement, I go back to the fact that, once again, when we started discussing this, and Warren came before us and said that the board, he wanted the board 100% together on whatever went to the state. And I once again state that if it's not going to be 2 representatives from Bunkerville and 3 from Mesquite, that we leave it alone, that we don't do anything. If we're going to get into a population argument and go from there, I'm not interested in doing anything. So that's my say. And if we're going to start worrying about population and whatnot, then my vote's against it.
Well, I would agree, the last thing we want is any kind of divisive split in the community. So the population thing, the only concern is if this actually, when it's read in the state legislature, whether there will be challenges even before it even gets to the floor, because they are looking,
And
that's
once-
one of the things they're looking at.
And once again, if we're extremely concerned about that, then let's leave it alone.
I think that Mr. Hardy also suggested that if we wanted to, we could float the bill out there and see what happens. See if it does get challenged.
Well, here's my comment on that, is if we float the bill out there and it gets on the legislative floor, we have no control once it's there. It's opened up, and that's opening up Pandora's box as far as I'm concerned. So either we come to a conclusion as a board of what we want and we're 100% for it, and if we're not 100% for it, we leave it alone.
Mr. Hardy, I think that, I think you said it a little bit differently. If we floated it, we wouldn't lose control. Isn't that what you told us?
Yeah, thank you, Warren Hardy, for the record. There are a couple of options. I mean, you're gonna put this forward, the Legislative Council Bureau will not draft what they feel is an unconstitutional bill. So they will come back and say, this is problematic from our perspective. They will be fairly aggressive in trying to accomplish and achieve what the legislator who introduces the bill wants, but they need to make sure they feel like they can defend it in court. With regard to the one man, one vote, that does generally come up in the debate. However, I know there are broad exceptions to that. It did come up when we originally did the bill. That was the first bill I did for the water district in 1993, I think. But the answer to that was that it was based on water shares, and that seemed to pass muster. So will the issue come up? Yes. Is it overcomable? Likely. I'm not an attorney, so I really cannot speak to that. But we could take the bill to the Legislative Council Bureau and ask their opinion on the drafting in this format and get their input. In terms of losing control of it, there is that possibility. I do think we could keep pretty good control because we're asking an individual legislator to introduce the bill. If it was a committee bill, committee introduction, then you do tend to lose control of it pretty fast. But that generally happens in terms of if it's a bill that's germane for another topic. This is specific to our charter, which wouldn't be germane to really any other issue out there. So it's not one someone would be inclined to want to hijack. So, that is a risk, certainly, that you lose control of it. But I think, given those two factors, that it's specific to our charter, and we have a legislator introduce it instead of a committee, that we could communicate some control.
Well, I think the one thing that definitely we all agree on is that we prefer to have all the members elected. I guess it's just a question of whether this will pass muster or won't pass muster. I don't think there'd be any problem with them being elected. I would think that the state legislature would probably welcome something like that.
That'll be the easy sell, yeah.
Yeah,
So, in terms of the one vote, one person, one vote issue, if this is the desire to just to have it at all elected and leave it at that, and that's what the board and the city can agree on, then I think maybe you submit that to Legislative Council Bureau and get their input, see if they think that's something that they can draft without any problems. Again, the original draft that's essentially what it is. It dictates where the folks are going to be from, irrespective of population. And so they drafted it once, and so it's not I think out of the realm of possibility that they would do it again and be okay with it.
I wouldn't have a problem sending it to the Legislative Council and getting their opinion on it before we make a final decision.
How much time do we have? This year's running, we're getting close.
No, we've got time. This is not a complex issue as far as drafting, and we've got it laid out pretty well for them here. I think you'd want to do it right away, though. If that was the direction, I'd want to take that to them this week.
if there's no comment, then I'll make a motion that we direct Warren to take that draft, bill draft to legislative council and get us an opinion as soon as possible.
I'll second that.
And a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, none opposed, so,
It's available electronically.
Yeah,
yeah.
I can email it to you.
Okay.
Is that what?